Thanks, it's great to be here. Well done coming out Sunday afternoon, but hey, well done, definitely. So it's a real pleasure to be here today. Now, I'm going to be very interactive. It is almost the end of the day. At one point, I'm going to make you get up and shout some words out, but let's get moving. So, just some disclosures. I do get paid by some companies to give talks, etc., often in beautiful locations. I've just got back from Italy, and we were on a lake. It was on, and I tried not to think about, I'm in Manchester. Hey! Who needs Italian lakes? No one needs it. So, what I'm going to cover is what I think everybody needs to know about reproductive health. I'm going to talk about the work that I've been doing over certainly the last sort of 10 years, but I started working in this field actually in 1987. So I was obviously very young when I started working. I just finished my PhD, and Louise Brown, you may know, Louise Brown was the world's first IVF baby. Does anyone know when she was born? Woo! So I've done this in school when my kids have been in the audience, and one of them shouted it out. I thought, oh, he does listen to me then. I honestly thought they never listened to anything I said. So yeah, very brilliant. 1978. So we're now running on to 1987. So that's not even 10 years after Louise was born. I was sitting in the library after almost finishing my PhD, looking for a job. In those days, we read a magazine. We read something like New Scientist and looked for jobs. And there was a job as a clinical embryologist. I didn't even know what that meant, but anyway, next thing I was a clinical embryologist. So I was 25, all my friends and I were trying not to get pregnant, and as I was doing my new job, I was learning about my fertility. And I was like, why didn't I know this before? So I started talking to my friends about it, and then I thought, let's write a book. So I did start writing a book. There was only one book around at that time called Our Body, Ourselves. It was very good, but I wanted a different slant. But I was 25, young, and life disappears very, very quickly. Next thing, it's 2015, and I still haven't written the book. So I start to write the book, and there it is, and it's in the foyer if you want a copy, Your Fertile Years, and it covers our reproductive health from puberty to menopause. And around 2015, now most of my friends are starting to go through the menopause. I'm going to touch on that today. And again, we knew nothing about it. Along the way, I also had trouble getting pregnant. I was with someone who wasn't ready to have kids when I was wanting to have kids in my early 30s, and then went through 7 years of fertility treatment for my kids. So I've been both sides of this table in trying to get pregnant. But this is not just about pregnancy and having a baby, for sure. So I'm going to talk about what I think we all need to know. I'm going to talk a little bit about femtech as well. So this is using health tech specifically for things that involve females. People have debated about the word, but it's called femtech. And I'm going to finish with how we may be able to have children in the future, which is a little bit scary for sure. This year, I started a podcast called Why Didn't Anyone Tell Me This? Because in my field, we have this saying all the time. We hear people say, why didn't I know this before? And this is exactly what situation I was in when I was 25. And I should have done it when I was 25, but we didn't have podcasts when I was 25. So we're doing it now. So as we've said, it's not just for those people having children. So back in 2015, I was writing the book, and then I was part of the British Fertility Society executive. And I was working with Adam Bailon, who's a clinician, and Jackie Boven, who's a psychologist. And we turned to each other and said, we need to make sure people know about these topics. So we set up something called the UK Fertility Education Initiative. And at that time, in the national curriculum, there was nothing really about fertility. And the Department for Education have changed that in 2019. They've written this sentence. It says, in the curriculum, we need to teach the facts about reproductive health, including fertility and the potential impact of lifestyle on fertility for men and women. Now, it did originally end there. There was a bit of an uproar, so they tacked on and menopause. You can see that's a really badly constructed sentence, okay? But it's there. We don't care. The words are there in the curriculum, so we have to teach it. So I am a bit of a freeloader. I know there are brilliant people around the world that do fabulous research, And a few times in my career, I've decided that if I get them all together and I make a committee or collaboration with them, maybe they'll teach me all the wonderful things that they're doing. And that's exactly what I've done on this. I set up a group, and it's a long name, but we've called ourselves the International Reproductive Health Education Collaboration, or the IREC for short. And there's loads of brilliant people from Portugal, Denmark, Australia, France, all around the world that are doing fabulous research in this area and know a lot more about it than I do. But I run it, and then they share all their knowledge with me. And by osmosis, I then become even more an expert on this. So we've done lots of things. And one thing we've done, ESHRA is a big fertility society and reproductive health society, and they have lots of money. So we've done loads of work with them in the past, and so we have a website with them. So all the things I'm going to tell you about are going to be freely available on this ESHRA website, because we're very much about giving all this. I'm an academic. We give everything away. So we're going to be doing all this work. So we've written some papers. We've talked about language. And today, sometimes I'm going to say male and female. Some slides say men and women. But as you'll see, we try to be absolutely inclusive, and that's just for ease of this conversation. So we've got a list of topics that I think we should be teaching. And these, sorry, this is, where should I go that side? Should I run over there? No, but not. So these are topics that is involved in reproductive health. And it really isn't just about having children, because all of us probably will go through puberty. Most females will have the menstrual cycle and periods. And all of these things could affect you if you want children or not. And almost all women will go through the menopause. So I'm going to make this interactive. You just get your phones out, or your laptop, or your tablet, or whatever, and you just need to go to www.menti.com, and you put this one code in. I'm going to ask about 5 questions through my talk, just to sort of keep you awake. It's the same code for all the questions. And once you've got this on your phone, you should also be able to see the slides on your phone. So just put in www.menti.com, put the code in. I can't read it, I'm getting a bit short-sighted. 14284710. And then as you start answering, so were you taught about these topics? So were you taught about puberty, fertility, menopause, etc. at school? Were you taught about endometriosis, PCOS? Were you taught about miscarriage? Were you taught about any of those things? So all, some, none, not sure. The very lucky person that was taught about all of them. You need to come and see me afterwards and tell me where you live, and I want to go and shake your teacher's hands for sure. So some of them we were taught. And what were we normally taught at school? We're taught how not to get pregnant. So we are led to believe that you can get pregnant at any time. So anyone that's sexually active, again, whether you want children or not, if you're sexually active in a relationship where we have intercourse, you are at risk of getting pregnant. So if you never want kids ever, you're trying not to get pregnant, you need to understand some of the things I'm going to go through next. So for me, it started about 8 years ago. I had that list that I showed you, and I went to my local school, and I said, what of these topics do you teach? And I was talking to the biology teacher, and she said, we don't really teach any of them, just how not to get pregnant. One of my friends, I started talking to lots of people who are teachers, and one of my friends, he was a Lloyd's broker. He decided for the last 10 years of his career, he wanted to go and teach Spanish. He's not even Spanish, but he wanted to go and teach Spanish, so he did the course, and I went to him, he's 55 years old, and I said, tell me about what you have to teach with regards to this. He said, Joyce, it's a disaster. I have to teach people about periods and sex and things. I don't want to teach that. I just want to teach Spanish. So that's how we do it in England. It's normally the form tutor, which can be anyone, 55-year-old Spanish male teacher, 30-year-old French teacher, history teacher, maths teacher, whatever. They teach these topics in the schools. And it keeps changing its name, but at the moment, they call it PSHE. And that's where most of this is taught. It's not taught in biology. So we did some research. We looked at the curricula for GCSEs and A-levels and looked at which of those covered any of the topics that I mentioned. And it really wasn't there. So I started going into schools. I put my services on social media, said, if you want me to come and give a talk in your school, let me come. And when I originally went, I was calling it fertility education, because that's People in our field always talk about fertility, but again, realizing that people associate that with having children, and what I was talking about was bigger than that. So that's why it became really important to talk about reproductive health. So we did a survey in schools. We surveyed over 1,200 kids in the UK from 16 to 18, and this work's been repeated in Belgium, Greece, and Japan. And these are the topics that's my list, and we said to the kids, did you learn these things in school? The blue bar is what they learn in school, and the orange bar is, did you look for information about these topics outside school? So I want to highlight a few things. So miscarriage is very low, menopause is just over 10%, endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome, which is called PCOS, these are a few percent, and this is an outrage, and I'm going to explain to you why. And it's been, I was heartbroken when I saw how much this was affecting our school kids. So we've asked about young people's intentions, the age they wanted kids, and how many kids they wanted. I mean, for them, 26 is really old. Between 26 and 35 is when, I think when they get to 26, they're going to realize that's not really old, and they'll change their mind a bit. But most of the kids wanted 2 to 3 children. And I've done this similar study with women, and they're age 30. And when I was 30, that's when I wanted kids. And I thought it would be older. Nowadays, I thought most women would say they wanted kids older, but they didn't. And they want to do things like their career and education. And then we asked men. They had a bigger peak at 35, and again, 2 to 3 children. So when I went to the schools, I used the platform I'm using now, and I said to the girls, can you tell us about your periods? How is your period affecting your well-being? And these were the sorts of things. This is very typical. Painful first 2 days, really heavy. This is, again, heartbreaking. So I've been doing this year focus groups with 15-year-old girls to ask them about their periods. And this is my recommendation. I've written a letter to the Department for Education and to many other people. And can you believe that we are teaching girls and boys separately about some of these things? Can you believe in 2023, girls are taken to a different room to talk about their periods, and the boys go to a different room and wonder, what are they talking about? The girls said, no, please don't do that. Can you teach us all together? We want the boys to understand what we're going through. Besides the fact that some people at that age don't identify as a girl or a boy. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's prehistoric. Not their form tutor. They said, please don't let their form tutor. They're not giving the right words. They're not helping. And we don't discuss this properly. Sometimes schools pay for outside people to come and give talks, and I think that's a problem if someone comes into the school, talks about periods, talks about pain, talks about sex, etc., and then leaves the building. The kids don't then want to talk to their teachers about it. The teachers haven't said those words to them. So I think the teacher needs, why would you get someone else? Why can't the teacher teach this? It's not rocket science, it's easy. And the kids said, can the teachers be taught in their teacher training how to support girls with periods? So I've got a real thing at the moment about toilets. So unless you're going to a gaming festival, there's always a queue for the women's toilets. I'm sorry to be sexist. I've got 3 boys. We've been to some gaming festivals. They are mainly, and it's not 100% sure, but it's about maybe 80% guys. There's a queue for the gents, no queue for the ladies. But if you're in an airport, in a theatre, anywhere, there's a queue for the ladies. Because our toilets are the same size as the male toilets, and they are in schools. But in the female toilets, in schools and other places, women have to change a period product. And so that's one of the reasons why there's a queue. We do more complicated things in the toilet than a guy. So in schools, the girls, actually my sons have told me the toilets are disgusting, and they're not fit for purpose for anyone. And really terrible, especially since the vaping pandemic. The teachers don't want to let the kids out of the classroom. So there are girls who need to change their period product. They may be feeling they're leaking, or they've just come on their period, and the teachers don't want to let them out. So the girls have had flooding and things, and that's unacceptable. So I think we need specialist teachers in each school, things like people like the school nurses, and they need to teach these topics and embrace it. So our international group, one thing we've been doing is developing with teachers a source of a resource so that they can then teach this within their school. So we've done a PowerPoint. This is the first slide. We've got a big PowerPoint presentation that the teachers can edit however they want, and we've given a written guide to it as well. It's been out for consultation, so we're now, it's offline at the moment while we edit it, and as soon as we can, we're going to put it back online and get more feedback from teachers to see how they're using it, and we just want to help them to deliver this information. So, we're going to have a bit of interaction. Can you all stand up? Let's get a bit of energy in the room. You all to stand up. Some of you might find this a bit uncomfortable. I hope you don't. Are you ready? I want everyone to shout out the word vulva. Woo! Oh my God, amazing. I've got goose pimples. Right, now all shout out penis. Penis. Woo! Well done. You can all sit down now. Did that feel good? Have you ever shouted that? You may have shouted out penis more than vulva. And many years ago, again, when I started, about 2015, I think if you Google it, you can still find it. I was doing the first conference we did around this in 2015, and the newspapers, including The Sun, but it was also in The Guardian, said that I said we should teach toddlers about sex. You know what I said? I said we should teach toddlers the right words for their anatomy. And I've heard a woman who was at a meeting where they were talking about using the right terms. It was an Eve appeal, which is a female gynae charity for female cancer. And this woman said, when I go into nurseries, we say the word penis, but we don't say vulva. Can't say vulva. Why can't we say vulva? And why have we made these words, dirty words, swear words? And sometimes when you try to post something on social media, you can put penis, but if you put vulva, it gets taken down. I think it's not so much now, but certainly a few years ago, it wasn't acceptable. That is crazy. So I think it's really important to embrace the right words from birth onwards. My kids told me when they were 10 years old, there was a boy in their sex ed who had never heard the word testicle. How can you have a 10-year-old who doesn't know what a testicle is? I don't know what they were calling them. We have all sorts of words. If we had more time, we could go through all the words that you might use instead of vulva and penis. But anyway, you could do that later. That could be, Joyce told us when we're in the bar tonight, you've got to think about different words for vulva and penis. It's a good fun thing. So, the menstrual cycle. This is where I was back in 1987. Why didn't I understand this? So the two key events are our period and ovulation. And we are taught at school, we have a 28-day cycle, and every 28 days we get a period, and in the middle of the cycle, on day 14, we ovulate, which is when the egg's released. So I won't go into too much detail, but I worked with a company called Natural Cycles, and on my podcast, coming very soon in November, is Eleni Berglund, who's the founder of that, and she explains why she wanted to set up an app to measure as a contraception and fertility app. So just very quickly, we looked at, they got big data. They've got millions of menstrual cycles in their database with this app. So we looked at it. This is the breakdown of how women have their cycles. Only 13% had 28 days. And day 14, which was the textbook thing, we found ovulation was closer to day 16. And other people have done the same project on other sets of big data and found the same thing. So we have to teach accurate information. Now, I'm just going to show these briefly, but this is what I use. All these slides coming up are what I use in schools. So, PCOS, 1 in 10 females have PCOS. This is really bad. The time it takes to diagnose this in women is really bad. We don't teach them what's a normal menstrual cycle and that this could be something abnormal. And it's not about having kids. There are health issues that can be along with this, and some of it can affect young girls really severely. And there's treatment. So we must make sure that we teach them about this. Endometriosis, again, painful periods. I won't read it all out, but painful periods, 1 in 10 females. So when I'm giving a talk to a group of 200 kids, 100 of them are female, there's going to be 10 with probably PCOS, 10 probably with endometriosis, and they might never have known, and they're struggling through their life with heavy periods, painful periods, irregular periods, and they could be helped. So we've got to give this information in schools. And fertility, Whether you want a child or not, if you're sexually active in sexual intercourse, then you need to understand about your fertility. You need to know about an egg, a sperm, and a womb, and what makes a baby. Now, we have a massive gender inequality here. Women only ovulate 1 egg per month, which is about 500 in our lifetime. Guys, okay, is it quantity or quality? Every time you ejaculate, roughly you give us 100 million sperm, which we only need 1. I have no idea why you have all those others. And there's a whole discussion at the moment about sperm counts decreasing, which I won't go into. But I think, and the data's looking pretty robust now, but I think that's because we're living in such a toxic environment. And I've heard, I haven't checked this data, but I've heard life expectancy is starting to decrease, especially in the US. You know, I'm going to come back to lifestyle, but, you know, we're eating rubbish, I love that I was talking about alcohol. But alcohol affects all of this. Smoking affects all of this. And we're living in such a toxic environment. So we only need 1 of each. Do you want children or already have them? Yes, no, we're not sure. Now, I asked this in schools, and we've looked at the data from the UK and Belgium in our school survey. And school kids, about 65%, of about from 15 to 18 say that they do want kids. So we often have this view that young people don't even think about it, but they do think about it. When you ask them, most of them say they do. So pretty standard. I know there's some people online, and I know there's a bit of a lag. I've just remembered about the lag. Sorry, guys. But they can be answering this as well. So quite a lot of you saying no in this audience, which is, you know, anyway. We have the choice, but again, if you're sexually active, you do need to understand these things. And I think this is really important in today's society. We now have different ways of making a family. We have single women, single men, same-sex couples having children, and I think it's important to make sure they understand if they want children, there are definitely ways of doing it. The conference I've just been at in Italy, we started one of the days with a roundtable discussion with 3 couples, same-sex couples, who had been through fertility treatment and had children. Everyone was crying. It was very, very passionate talks about their journey to get where they are. I've done some work with the Science Museum about the future of sex, and I talked about if people want kids. And I wrote a paper a few years ago. This is another thing to practice later. You can go online to meet a potential sperm donor. Go online to meet lots of people for lots of things, but there are a number of websites such as Pride Angel, coparentmatch.com. So if you don't believe me, have a go later in the bar, another little game. And look, so you can see why maybe women would want to meet a donor online there's various reasons I won't go into at the moment. But why some of the guys literally have been in the press saying they fathered 600, 700 children. And yeah, there's a little bit of worry about that. But we have written a paper about meeting a sperm donor online and what people need to think about. And for those that do not align or identify as their sex assigned at birth, again, it depends on their couple, or if they're single, they need eggs, sperm, and a womb, and those are all possible. And it's especially important if they're medically transitioning, and I know that lots of young people, it's the last thing they want to think about. We don't really know, for example, the effect of testosterone long-term on the egg, and so it is really complicated. But they can freeze their eggs or their sperm before they start transitioning. And if they're having surgical transitioning, then that's going to make them infertile. So just giving them the information and the big message here, so they can make an informed choice about what they want to do. And again, if you're having sex or not, or if you're having sex and you don't want to get pregnant, you need to think about the fertile window. And the fertile window is when the egg's released, and that's the time when you obviously can get pregnant. In some of our surveys, quite a number of people have said that you can get pregnant any day of the month. And that's because that's what lots of schools are telling people. Yeah, you can get pregnant any day. Just don't do it. Don't have any sex, which is obviously not going to happen. So you can measure your body temperature. It goes slightly up the day you ovulate, and Natural Cycles, who I was mentioning before that we did the work with, they've just announced in the last few days that they've now, I normally have my Apple Watch on, but I forgot it. They're working with Apple now, and it can measure your body temperature, and your Apple Watch will be able to tell you the day you ovulate with some accuracy. So that's amazing. Or you can use things like sticks that look at your hormone levels. So males, we always used to let the men off. We always used to say these were women's issues if you were trying to get pregnant and you didn't. And I've done some work with a racing car driver called Toby Trice, him and his partner went through years of fertility treatment because no one examined him properly. And he actually had something called a varicocele, which is a blockage within his testes, and when it got operated on, they got pregnant straight away. So he's really on a mission for men to talk about their fertility and check lumps and bumps and all those sorts of things. But the clinic should have found that before. So recent data is showing that after the age of 40, men's fertility does go down. Let's have a little game. Who can shout out some men who are way over 40 who have fathered children? Charlie, showing your age. Who else? Robert De Niro. Oh, yeah. So, if you do this in a school, they wouldn't say any of those because they don't know who they are. They don't say Mick Jagger or Rod Stewart or anyone like that. But they do say Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. Yeah, I know. So, but it's important. Men don't lose their fertility. They can, but still get people pregnant, women pregnant. But they have fewer healthy sperm. They have an increased risk of causing a miscarriage. And there's a whole list. I won't go through them all. I think we've got, alcohol. I've got alcohol on the slide. Alcohol definitely does affect their fertility. But females, it's very depressing because we lose our fertility several years before we go through the menopause. And I'm going to talk about the menopause next. But the menopause is when our periods will stop, our menstrual cycles stop. So that's because of the quantity and quality of our eggs. So women are born with all the eggs they're going to have. Those 500 eggs, they were there when we were born. And we have about 1 to 2 million at birth. By the time we get to puberty, most of them have already died. I don't know who designed us, but they did a very odd job. So by puberty, we've got about 400,000 eggs left. We only ovulate about 500. You can do the maths. But what happens is that every month, a lot of those eggs will just die. So each month they die. Normally one gets ovulated. But also the quality goes down. So this is one of the pictures from my book. The age we often talk about is age 35. That's when our fertility really, and not in everyone, this is obviously scientific data, but there is a decrease in our fertility. So, famous women who have had children over 40. Yeah, a bit more tricky. Janet Jackson. Angelina Jolie. Sorry? Yeah. And Naomi Campbell, who was in her 50s, who said, oh, it's so easy to get pregnant at this age. You know what? She wasn't actually pregnant. Did you notice? I mean, she did sort of uncryptically say, she used a surrogate. So with all of the people that you've talked about, there is some expensive fertility treatment going on. So all the older men you shouted out, they had one thing in common. They had a much younger female partner. But for the women, it doesn't matter what age the guy is. I'm going to show you some data now. The quality of the chance of getting pregnant for women is absolutely related to age. So we have a bit of a problem because the mean age of women having their first child globally has gone up and up. When I first started talking about this graph, the upper number was 32. Now it's 34. And you can see almost every country from here onwards is the first child over 30. Remember, most people want 2 to 3 children. So this, the black diamonds are 1970, the white diamonds are 2000, and then the blue bars are 2020. So it's getting more and more every year. And the total fertility rate is the average number of children a woman has in a particular country. When I was young, it was 2.4 in the UK. Now it's under 2. In lots of European countries, it's 1.3. So that means people are having, on average, just over one child. Many people are having one child, but that's not what people want to have. And I know we could have a discussion about too many people on the planet, blah, 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 but that's another discussion. So is IVF the answer? Is fertility treatment, how Louise Brown was made, where we do all of this in a lab, is that the answer? This is if the woman uses her egg, so over the age of 35, the data is separated by a couple of years because it goes down so quickly, and over 44, very small chance of getting pregnant by fertility treatment. And it's very similar naturally. If she uses a donor egg, the donors are all under 35, so the level stays pretty similar. These two women have obviously used the donor egg, but just to show that the womb stays pretty fertile. So they're obviously at least my age or older, and they've got pregnant and are carrying their children. So, but with a donor egg. So those celebrities have done some of this high-tech treatment. And there's a lot of controversy about egg freezing being heavily marketed to young women. These are my students at their graduation. We run a women's health MSc, so obviously lots of them are women. We do have some guys. So is egg freezing the answer? So egg freezing will take eggs from a woman, say at the age of 30, freeze them, put them on ice, so then that would sort of suspend in animation the quality of the egg, and then they could come back later, even when they were 40, 45, and use that egg, and it would be, the quality would be the age it was frozen. It's hugely expensive. You need multiple rounds. We don't have really good data on the success, so it's really no guarantee. Even if you collected 20 eggs, there's no guarantee that you'll have a baby. And we used to have legislation, crazy legislation in the UK, but lots of countries have regulations. So I call this Plan B, not Plan A, and I would feel uncomfortable if at graduation we marched all our young girls off to the fertility clinic to freeze their eggs. Our work with our international group is trying to get people out of the fertility clinic to make sure they have the information so they can get pregnant naturally. Menopause. Lots of women complain that it says men at the beginning. I'm not really bothered. I've done lots of work. This is my wonderful team. I've surveyed over 6,000 women, asking them about menopause. I'm a cold water swimmer, so we've done cold water swimming and menopause. We've done a survey specifically for black women because they traditionally don't answer surveys so much. And we've been doing focus groups this year with peri- and postmenopausal women. So, your go. What words would you use to describe the menopause? You can write single words. If you want to write hot flush, you can write two. What words would you use to describe the menopause? It's going to make us a word cloud. Here we go. Sweaty. Mysterious. Oh, I like that one. Unknown. Hot. Misunderstood. Right, the game, while we're watching this, if someone can see a positive word, yell it out.
Liberating.
Where's that? Who wrote that? A few people wrote that. Liberating. Oh my God, our messages are starting to get through. So, unprotected sex, that's a good one, right? So, sex at all at that age, really, is fabulous. So, natural, but yeah. Look at it. Taboo, tired, ignored, pain, uncomfortable. Brain fog. Okay, let's talk about a few things. So the first myth, there is many myths around menopause. The first myth is that so the word menopause means that you've been for 1 year without having a period. The average age, women in the UK, white women, go for 1 year without having a period is age 51. So if a woman is age 48 and she stops having her periods, many women think, oh, I've had an early menopause. I've gone through it early. No, you haven't gone through it early. 51 is the average. So if we look at this graph, this is the age that women have gone through the menopause. And look, there were some at 30. You can go through the menopause at any age. Obviously, this isn't right. So most women go through a natural menopause from age 45 to 55. And some it will be later. They're the unlucky ones, seriously. But being 60 and still having a period, I'll tell you about the perimenopause group. They are not happy about that. So Perimenopause, what does that mean? That means that you are starting to get some of the symptoms, or having some of the symptoms of the menopause, and I'm going to talk to you about them in the next slides. Postmenopause is when we jump up and down. I'm going to talk to you about this because we don't have any more periods. Fantastic. And I'm going to talk to you about all those terms. So, in my surveys, I'm just going to show you a tiny bit of the data. We did a survey of women under 40 to ask them their views on the menopause. I got several messages from people, why are you asking me this? I'm under 40. Yes, I'm asking you because we want to know what you think about it. Anyway, the under 40s and the over 40s, there's different breakdowns for ages and definitions and things. How informed do you feel? Why are the biggest graphs not informed at all or some knowledge? That is a disgrace that women around the age of 40 do not know this that's going to happen. They don't understand it. I want to see, just to make sure I don't fall off, I want to see 100% say very informed. They need to start being prepared, actually way before 40, really very informed about this natural event that's going to happen to them. Views on stopping periods. People kept telling me before I was doing this research, women like having a period. I'm hearing the laughter, girls. So we asked women, we asked the under 40, are you happy that they're going to stop? Yes, they're happy. So we followed that up. We did focus groups this year with perimenopausal women to ask them about their periods. So very similar to the work that I did with the 15-year-olds, we did it with perimenopause. How do you feel about having a period? 100% were not happy. Some of them have found some nice things. They use the menstrual blood to feed their plants and all sorts of things, Some of them did say some positive things, but every one of them said some negative things. And some of them, without any prompting, went back to puberty. I thought that it was so interesting that this had been, and the negative things about how they started their periods, what happened at puberty. And I thought that was so enlightening to, these are, the women, I think they had to, I can't remember, I think we put over 45, they had to be over 45 to do the focus groups. And so these women, puberty was a long time ago, and it was still in the forefront of their mind. Do you feel supported? Not really. So in the workplace, etc., and we could do a whole talk about menopause in the workplace, but obviously that's a problem. And has your period changed during the perimenopause? The biggest problems were unpredictability. They now, because their menstrual cycles were starting to change, they could have a period at any time of the day on any day. So before they had some idea when their period was going to come, now they have no idea. And what makes it worse is that they often get really heavy. I had the worst periods ever about a couple of years before mine actually stopped. They were just horrendous, and that's really common. And the premenstrual syndrome issues that women get, some of them are really amplified. So these are women that, whoever you are, if it's not affecting you directly, you are going to be working with women or living with women or women who are friends of yours, or women who are going through these things, and we haven't talked about it enough. This is one of the quotes. Sometimes I'll go 60 days in between periods. Sometimes it's twice a month. Sometimes very light, and you think, oh, gosh, maybe it's getting lighter. And then it totally catches me off guard. No symptoms, not even a stomach cramp, and then whoosh, and which is really kind of hard to cope with because you're not expecting it. So yes, I'm all over the place. So these are women who are really affecting their well-being. One of them said, when she finally has gone for a year without her periods, she's having a party. She's going to have a menopause period-stopping party. I love it. So we asked women in one of our surveys, don't worry about the graph, it's just pretty, so I leave it there. These were all symptoms. And we were controversial. We gave them a long list. Which symptoms do you feel is associated with your menopause or perimenopause? Irritability, poor concentration, poor memory, brain fog, low mood, mood swings, lack of motivation, reduced confidence, anxiety, fatigue, problems sleeping. Now, when I give this talk in schools, besides the hot flushes, I say to kids, did you feel like that when you were going through puberty? Because they are. That's exactly what they're like. And they're like that because they're just the same thing in reverse. Puberty, the kids' hormones are spiraling up, and menopause, the hormones are spiraling down. So women told us that they need education. They want to know about these symptoms because it's affecting their lives not knowing. This is a great quote. The lack of information is shocking. I didn't know the symptoms, so I didn't join the dots until I spoke to a friend. We are both nurses, and we didn't know. We had many women who had been experiencing these symptoms for years and who didn't join the dots. So that's unacceptable. Women should know. It's not rocket science. Their GP often didn't understand. They often got the comment, you're not 51, you can't be perimenopause. This thing about 51. I mean, it's crazy. They said there was a stigma, taboo. They felt forgotten. Now, I'm going to be controversial again. So, that's me with the woolly hat on. These hormones in women, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and which are in men too, they are very, very powerful hormones. You know, men all know about testosterone, so if we just think about women, in our life from puberty to the menopause, these hormones are oscillating every day. They're up and down and up and down and up and down. And we don't know how they're going to affect us. And they do affect us. They affect our mood. So the schoolgirls told me they don't want to go out around the time of their period because they're angry. Because their hormones are just doing it to them. It's not their fault. No one should take it personally or hold them to account. It's their hormones. They're so powerful. So women have to oscillate through this crashing wave of hormones, physical and mental symptoms, their whole fertile years. Post-menopause, that's me as well, I'm one of them. That's Essex, but I live near the Essex coast. That's Essex. You wouldn't think it. So I think we're calm. The hormones are down. We're in a much better state. Now, on my podcast, these two women, Alice Mukherjee and Susan Davis, are endocrinologists. Endocrinologists study hormones. They know about this. These are the people you should listen to, and they've gone through key aspects about our hormones in the podcast. So I think I agree with the liberating and the natural and the things that other people had put on there. Post-menopause is freedom. No more cycling hormones, menstrual cycle, periods, premenstrual syndrome, contraception. Don't have to bother anymore. Okay, be careful though at the end. I know too many people that got pregnant at the end. Two inspiring women on my podcast. Jo Mosley's a paddleboarder. Siobhan Daniels sold her house, has been living in a motorhome and traveling the world for 3 years. She's on one big holiday, having the best life. We have lots of people talking about the positivity of life post-menopause. But I absolutely understand that for some women, going through this is a really, really horrendous time of their lives. We're not gaslighting anyone. People keep saying we're not gaslighting. Some women are going to need HRT treatment where we give back estrogen and progesterone. I'm not going to go on the testosterone issue at the moment. And we all support that in women for sure, but we've created this such negative narrative about this time of a woman's life. It's not helping her at work. It's not helping her in her private life. We need to be more realistic. If someone I know published a positive menopause story, and again, she was told, you're gaslighting, it's unfair, you're not respecting the women that are having a difficult time. We need to listen to everyone's stories, but we absolutely need to appreciate we're individuals, and some women are going to have a really tough time getting through. So, light at the end of the tunnel. There's a brilliant Tenor Lady advert on TV. It says, after the menopause, it ends, and you become more yourself than you ever were. And I know lots of women who absolutely feel that. I feel the last 15 years of my life has been the best, most productive, happiest time of my life since I've been post-menopause. It's time to think about self. Estrogen is a very nurturing hormone. If you don't have much in your body, you don't care. No, you do. My kids are still at home. We do, but we can start thinking about self. So this is I run a women's group. We do all sorts of activities. We do a lot of creative things, and we try to think about the positivity of what we do. So all of my work together, we have set up now from UCL, but in partnership with the British Menopause Society, the Royal College of Obs and Gynae, Wellbeing of Women, and the Sophia Foundation, we have funding now that with my amazing team, Shima, Polly, and Nikki, we are setting up a national menopause education and support program. A bit like, so the NCT is the National Childbirth Trust. When you're pregnant, you can go to this group, have some support by people who are also pregnant, and then they teach you about different aspects, and we're going to do that for menopause. We're not forgetting the men, we're going to do things for men. We've got LGBT, neurodiversity, different cultures, early menopause. We're co-designing this with everybody to make it fit for purpose. So this is my most important slide. For everyone in this room, I have read so much about late onset diseases. You talked about cancer earlier and the alcohol issue, dementia, heart disease, diabetes. We die now of diseases of aging. We don't die because of an infection or those things that used to kill people years ago. We die of aging diseases. If we look after what I call our pillars of well-being, our nutrition, our exercise, our sleep, and our mental health, they don't just help everyone's reproductive health. They help our fertility, they help our menstrual cycle, they help our menopause. They help all of us in this room lead a longer and healthier life and reduce the risk of dementia, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. So we have to take a grip of this. We shouldn't look at this when we're trying to get pregnant or when we're menopausal or whatever. We should be doing this all the time. And if you haven't watched it yet, watch Blue Zones on Netflix. It's about the pockets of the world where there is great longevity, very little dementia, etc., and see what they're doing. And the main part, besides also community is so important, and looking after all of these things. So the very last question, do you manage to look after your well-being? I've written here most of the time. Oh, lucky people say, I am a fitness nut. I love it. I used to teach aerobics when I was younger. It's hard to find the time. I'm going swimming in a lake tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock with my friend who lives in Manchester, but it's really hard. Yeah, no, most of the time. It's hard, but it's our health. And it's so, so important. So I want to end this saying it's not just our reproductive health, it's our health overall. So I'm not going to talk about femtech, but except to say it's very important. I've done a lot of research on it, and I think we need to embrace technology. I just see a lot of technology that is really not evidence-based. And one of my sayings is that we should be empowering women, not exploiting women. And I keep seeing tech and tests and all sorts of things that come out, such as the menopause test. There is no menopause test, okay? That just is not fair. So we need to really be empowering people. And I think that's so how will our future children be made? In conclusion, on my podcast, I had Mats Brandstrom, who transplants wombs. We've made at some point we will have wombs external. This woman says we could wear them like a kangaroo. We've got the chance of making eggs and sperm from stem cells, for sure. So anyone in this room at some point in the future, I think in our lifetime for sure, I think in the next 5-10 years, we'll be able to maybe use skin or another type of tissue to make eggs and sperm. So that's coming. And The Handmaid's Tale. Why have I got Kim Kardashian there? Do you know who Kim Kardashian is? Are you that? No, you're of course you are. Right, they had surrogacy. Lots of those celebrities, some of the ones you mentioned, they had surrogacy. And it just gives this feeling of The Handmaid's Tale about paying somebody else or, you know, again, the worry about exploiting somebody to carry your baby. So the take-home messages. This is Toby Trice, the racing driver I mentioned. On our website that we've developed, we're going to have fact sheets, we've got real stories, we've got fertility posters, we're going to have lots and lots of things to help people and support people. So everyone can make informed decisions. We're providing education and support. We need to radically change this globally. So I've talked about what we're doing in the UK, but we are doing this globally. And we need to use social media. And if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at Prof. Joyce Harper. So really easy to find. And on my podcast, just put Joyce Harper in any podcast platform and it comes up. Thank you very much.